The bedroom was so quiet the silence felt heavy. The house made small sounds as it cooled for the night. A pipe ticked behind the wall. A distant car whispered through wet streets. Naomi lay on her side, one hand tucked under her cheek, still warmed by the familiar comfort of Julian's voice. He always called before bed when he traveled for business. It was their ritual, steady and reassuring. "Good night. Love you," she answered in the same soft cadence, because that was what a wife did, because that was what 5 years of marriage had taught her to expect. She set the phone on the nightstand and let her eyes close. Then something pulled her back. The phone screen still glowed. The call timer was still running, changing numbers with a calm, mechanical certainty. Naomi stared at it, waiting for it to correct itself. A glitch, she thought. A delayed disconnect, nothing more. She reached for the phone to end the call properly. Her hand stopped in midair. A woman laughed. The sound was bright, intimate, too close to be public. It belonged in a private room where shoes were kicked off and secrets were safe. It carried the warmth of shared air and the ease of someone who had nothing to fear. Naomi's throat dried instantly. Her fingertips hovered above the glass. The room felt smaller, as if the darkness had leaned in. The woman spoke with amused irritation, like Naomi was a small obstacle. She said she thought Naomi would never stop talking. Julian laughed in response. It was his real laugh, the one Naomi had loved 7 years ago. Hearing it aimed elsewhere felt like stepping onto a missing stair. Her stomach dipped hard. Julian answered in the gentle tone he used when he wanted Naomi calm. He said Naomi liked bedtime routines. He said the woman knew how Naomi was. Naomi sat up. The mattress dipped under her weight with a soft complaint. The sheets slid against her legs with a faint rustle that sounded too loud in the stillness. The call timer kept moving. The woman asked how much longer they had to keep this up. Her voice carried impatience, sharp and young, or maybe just unburdened. She said it had been over a year, and she was getting impatient. Julian called her baby. He said he knew. He said they had to be smart about this. Naomi grabbed the nearest pillow and pressed it against her stomach like a brace. Her heartbeat hammered in her ears, each beat thick and undeniable. Julian said Naomi was not going anywhere. He said she was too comfortable, too dependent on the lifestyle he provided. He said she did not even work anymore. The words struck like blunt force, not because Naomi did not know she had left her job, but because he said it like a successful tactic, like a plan that had worked. Naomi lifted her fist to her mouth and bit down on her knuckle. Teeth against skin. A clean sting. The pain kept her silent. Her eyes burned and watered anyway. Tears slipped down her cheeks, hot and quick, soaking into the sleeve of her nightgown. The woman asked about the prenuptial agreement. Julian said it was airtight. He said if they divorced, Naomi would get almost nothing. Naomi stared at the timer. The numbers changed with indifferent rhythm. A digital pulse, measuring her life, unraveling in seconds. Julian said that was why he needed to keep Naomi happy for now. He said at least until the merger went through. Then he could start laying the groundwork for divorce. He said he needed Naomi playing the perfect wife at company events. Smiling, looking pretty, not asking too many questions. Naomi swallowed and tasted salt and a hint of iron. The skin on her knuckle throbbed where her teeth had broken it. She breathed in shallow pulls through her nose, terrified of making any sound that would announce she was still there. The call timer kept moving. Julian's voice stayed easy. He said sometimes he felt bad, but his tone held no remorse. He said Naomi loved him in her boring, predictable way. He said the other woman made him feel alive. He mocked the way Naomi planned things. He mocked the way she tried to build a life. The woman laughed again. bright and cruel. Julian laughed with her. Naomi's fingers trembled. She pressed her palm flat to the sheet to steady herself. The fabric was cool and smooth under her skin. Absurdly normal, Julian said. One more thing with smug certainty. He said Naomi was so naive she would never notice when he changed his passwords. He said she never questioned trips anymore. He said it was perfect. Naomi's stomach turned cold. Her thumb hovered over the end call button. One press would end the voices. One press would return the bedroom to clean silence. Instead, she opened the recording app. Her fingers fumbled once, then steadied as if something inside her had clicked into place. She pressed record. A beep sounded, sharp in the quiet. A small red light appeared and began to blink. The red pulse reflected faintly in Naomi's wet eyes. The tears were still there, but something else moved behind them now, something hard and focused. The blinking light looked like a warning signal. It looked like a line being crossed. Naomi opened the Notes app with her free hand. Her knuckles still hurt. She welcomed the pain. It made her precise. She typed a first line. Julian, 15 minutes, 43 seconds. Betrayal. The words sat on the screen. Plain and irreversible. Naomi lifted her sleeve and wiped her cheeks slowly, deliberately. The tears did not vanish, but the softness in her face did. Her breathing steadied, her jaw set. She looked at the blinking red light reflected in the phone glass, and her expression went still, almost empty. The call timer continued its quiet climb. Naomi stayed silent. She let Julian keep talking. She let the woman keep laughing. She let the recording capture every word. In the dark, the perfect wife did not make a sound. Only the red light blinked, steady as a new heartbeat. Morning light slipped through the curtains like it had permission. It fell across the bed, across the nightstand, across Naomi's phone. The screen was dark, but her body still felt wired, as if the night had left a current running under her skin. She sat up slowly, listening to the house breathe. Everything sounded normal. That was what made it unbearable. Naomi reached for the phone with careful hands. Her thumb unlocked it. The file sat there, quiet and permanent. She did not press play. She opened her laptop instead. The hinge creaked softly as the screen lifted. The small sound felt loud in the stillness. Naomi plugged in the charging cable and watched the device connect, then dragged the audio file into an email draft. Her pulse tightened as she clicked send. A progress bar appeared and crawled forward. It moved too slowly, as if it enjoyed making her wait. Naomi stared at it until it reached the end, and the confirmation appeared. She did not relax. She opened a cloud drive and created a new folder with a boring name that would never catch anyone's eye. Household Receipts. Her fingers stayed steady as she uploaded the file. Another progress bar. Another wait. She watched it fill from nothing to complete, holding her breath until the checkmark appeared. Then she repeated it on a second service. Then a third. Click, upload, confirm. Each completion made her feel less like a person and more like a machine built for survival. When the third upload finished, Naomi closed the laptop and went to the bathroom. The overhead light hummed faintly. She turned on the faucet and let cold water run over her hands. It stung where her teeth had broken skin on her knuckle. The pain was clean, honest. She looked at herself in the mirror. Same face, same hair, but her eyes looked awake in a way she barely recognized. Naomi dressed with intention. Coffee first, bitter and hot. Steam curling upward and disappearing. A shower that felt like scrubbing a roll off her skin. Then, the blue dress Julian always liked. Not because she liked it, but because it worked. She applied concealer under her eyes, then lipstick in a calm, practiced swipe. Not to be pretty, to be armored. She pressed her lips together once, sharp and deliberate, sealing the mask in place. Her phone buzzed. Landing in 2 hours. Miss you. Naomi stared at the text until the screen dimmed. Her thumb moved with controlled precision. Miss you too. Can't wait to see you. The lie left her hand smoothly, like she had been trained for it. She walked into the home office and closed the door behind her. Julian's desk was perfect, edges aligned, papers stacked like he believed order could prevent chaos. Naomi did not go to the filing cabinet yet. She stood still long enough to hear her own breath. Then she crossed to the bookshelf and ran her fingertips along the spines until she found the thick book Julian liked to display more than read. She pulled it out. Behind it, taped to the back panel, was a small brass key. Its weight felt cold and final in her palm. Naomi held it for a second longer than necessary, feeling the shape of it. The way it belonged to a lock Julian assumed she would never touch. She slid the key into the pocket of her dress. Metal brushed fabric. A tiny sound, barely there. But it landed in her body like a warning. Naomi replaced the book exactly where it had been, adjusting it until the spine lined up with the others. She left the office with the same quiet control and closed the door. Her phone buzzed again. Be home in an hour. Love you. Naomi typed her answer and stopped one word short on purpose. See you soon. She watched the message send. A small rebellion. A cold one. She set the phone face down on the counter and poured 2 glasses of wine. The liquid caught the light like dark rubies. She arranged them neatly, like a hostess preparing for a guest, like a wife waiting for her husband. Outside, tires rolled over gravel. A car door shut. The front door opened. Naomi's pulse rose and then flattened into something she could manage. Julian walked in carrying a bouquet of red roses. His smile was bright, effortless, confident. He looked like a man returning to a life that would always obey him. Hey, beautiful, he said, voice warm. He held out the flowers like a peace offering. Naomi took them. The petals were cool from outside. The scent was sweet and heavy, almost suffocating, as if the room had been filled with perfume to hide smoke. What's the occasion? She asked, her tone light. No occasion. Just wanted to remind my wife how much I appreciate her. He leaned in and kissed her. His lips were familiar. His hand settled at her waist. Casual ownership. The brass key in her pocket shifted as he pulled her closer. A faint jingle, small as a breath, kissed the fabric and disappeared. Naomi did not flinch. She kept her face soft. She kept her hands steady against his back. She let the hug look warm from the outside. How was your trip? She asked when he pulled back. Exhausting, but successful. He picked up a glass of wine and took a sip. The Patterson deal is almost done. He started talking, smooth and practiced, his words shaped like stories meant to be believed. Naomi nodded in the right places, smiled when he expected her to, listened with the calm attention of a woman he thought he had already reduced to routine. Julian stepped closer again and wrapped his arms around her. He lowered his chin onto the top of her head, voice turning gentle, intimate. You're so understanding, he murmured. I'm lucky to have you. Naomi's eyes stayed open. Over his shoulder, she could see the home office door. She could see the shadow of the filing cabinet through the glass panel. She could see, in her mind, the lock waiting for the key in her pocket. Her phone lay face down on the counter, silent and safe. The recording was already out of reach, beyond his control. Julian held her like he owned her. Naomi stood still inside his arms, breathing evenly, her expression unreadable, the key pressed against her thigh like a promise. Julian disappeared down the hallway with his wineglass still in hand. loosening his tie as he walked. The collar of his shirt opened like a small surrender to comfort. He glanced back at Naomi with the same easy confidence he wore like a second skin. He said he needed a shower. He said it like a normal man ending a normal day. Naomi nodded and lifted the bouquet of roses from the counter, carrying them to the sink. The petals brushed her wrist, velvet soft. The scent clung to her fingers, sweet enough to feel mocking. From the hallway, a door clicked. Then, water started running. At first, it was only a distant hiss. Then, it grew into a steady rush, filling the house with a sound that could cover mistakes. Naomi placed the roses into a vase without looking at them too long. Her hands moved with quiet efficiency, arranging stems the way she always did. The domestic gesture almost made her laugh, but her mouth stayed still. She listened. The shower roared. The bathroom fan came on, a low mechanical hum. Julian's voice drifted once, muffled, as if he were talking to himself, or humming. It meant he was relaxed. It meant he was not thinking about her. Naomi wiped her palms on a dish towel that did not need it. Then, she walked toward the office. The hallway light cast a thin stripe across the floor. The house smelled like wine and soap and rose perfume. Her bare feet made no sound on the wood. She closed the office door behind her and let the latch catch with a soft, final click. The room was darker than the rest of the house. The only light came from the small desk lamp. Julian insisted on leaving off unless he was working. Naomi did not turn it on. She did not want shadows to move in the windows. She slipped her hand into her pocket and wrapped her fingers around the brass key. Cold metal. Smooth teeth. It felt heavier in here, like the room understood what it was. The filing cabinet stood against the wall, tall and dull, its lock reflecting a faint glint from the hallway light. Naomi crossed to it and crouched. Her knees pressed into the carpet, fibers catching at her skin. She brought the key to the lock. For a moment she held it there without inserting it, listening to the water rushing down the hall, letting it steady her breathing. Then she turned the key. The lock clicked open with a sound so sharp, Naomi's heart jumped. She froze, eyes fixed on the door, as if it might swing open by itself. Nothing happened. The shower kept running. Naomi pulled the drawer. Metal slid against metal with a low scrape. The smell of paper rose immediately, dry and faintly chemical. Ink, old toner, a hint of leather from the file folders. Everything inside was organized, labeled in Julian's neat handwriting. Business, taxes, investments, properties. Naomi's throat tightened as she flipped the first folder open. She did it slowly, like touching something that might burn. Bank statements lay stacked, like boring evidence of ordinary life, but the numbers were too large to feel ordinary, the transfers too frequent, moving in patterns that did not match what Julian ever discussed at dinner. Naomi took out her phone and opened the camera without sound. She turned off the flash. The screen cast a pale glow over her fingers, over the white paper, over Julian's careful lines. She held the phone steady and photographed the first page, then the second, then the third. Each silent shutter felt like a small theft, a transfer to an account she did not recognize. Another transfer, then another, all timed near the end of each month. As if the money moved on schedule like a private tide. She opened the next folder. A property deed. The address was downtown. A condo. A place Naomi had never been, never seen in photos, never heard mentioned. The paper felt thick and official, stamped and signed. Julian's name was not on it directly. A corporate name was. Clean and unfamiliar. Naomi's skin went cold. She photographed the deed, then the page behind it. She tilted her phone to catch the stamp clearly, to capture the signature line, to make the evidence legible and undeniable. She moved through the folders with growing precision, not frantic, not sloppy. She did not tear through anything. She did not leave fingerprints on glossy pages longer than necessary. She turned each sheet from the corner, careful not to crease it. Receipts appeared next. Restaurants Naomi had never visited with him. Hotels in cities he had described as boring conference stops. Jewelry stores she recognized from the shopping district. The kind of places that wrapped purchases in heavy black boxes and ribbon. Naomi's mouth went dry as she photographed each receipt. A charge for a necklace, a charge for a bracelet. Dates that lined up with evenings Julian said he had been working late. Naomi's phone screen filled with images of his double life, each one captured in silence, while he rinsed shampoo from his hair down the hall. She pulled out another folder and found a calendar printout, business trips highlighted, deals circled, notes in the margins. Naomi leaned closer, reading the handwriting. One entry made her stomach twist. A flight. Early. Weekend. The word Maldives, written with an easy slash of pen, like a casual indulgence. Naomi's fingers tightened around the paper until it trembled. She forced herself to loosen her grip before she left a mark. She photographed it. Then she photographed it again, closer, making sure the ink was crisp on the screen. The shower turned off. Naomi's body snapped into alertness. Water stopped rushing. The house shifted, suddenly quieter. The fan still humming, but not enough to hide movement. She slid the papers back into their exact stacks. She returned each folder to its place, matching the angles, aligning the edges like Julian would. Her hands moved faster now, but not careless. She pushed the drawer closed with a controlled breath. The lock turned under the key with a final click. Naomi slid the key back into her pocket and backed away from the cabinet as if distance could erase what she had done. In the hallway, a drawer opened. A towel rustled. Julian cleared his throat. Naomi stepped to the desk and wiped the edge with her palm, smoothing nothing. She slipped her phone back into her hand, screen dark. She took one last look around the office, searching for anything out of place. Everything looked untouched. She opened the office door and walked into the hallway at the same pace she always used, calm and unhurried, as if she had only gone to fetch a book. Julian's voice floated from the bedroom. He called her name, casual, almost affectionate. Naomi answered immediately, letting warmth sit in her tone like a practiced trick. She said she was right there, and as she walked toward him, the brass key pressed against her thigh, and the hidden photos on her phone felt heavier than any object she had ever carried. The law office smelled like lemon oil and cold toner, the kind of clean that erased fingerprints. Naomi's heels tapped across the marble lobby, each step swallowed by soft, expensive silence. A receptionist glanced up, recognized her last name, and looked away too quickly. Patricia Holmes waited behind glass and steel, silver hair pulled tight, jacket tailored like a blade. Her desk was bare except for a legal pad, a pen aligned with the edge, and a small clock that moved with ruthless patience. Naomi sat. The chair held her upright without comfort. Her phone felt heavier than it should, warm from her palm, a small furnace of proof. Patricia's eyes went to the phone. "Play it." Naomi set it down and pressed the screen. The recording filled the room. A woman's laugh, bright and close, like it came from the same pillow Julian had promised Naomi from. Then Julian's voice, low and familiar, the tone he used when he wanted things easy. The sound was slightly tinny, threaded with the faint crackle of speakerphone, and it made every word feel sharper. Patricia did not flinch. Her face stayed neutral, but her gaze tightened, measuring, calculating. Naomi watched her hands instead. They stayed still until Julian mentioned the prenuptial agreement, airtight, and the merger, and the way Naomi was useful only as a smile on his arm. Naomi's fingers curled under the chair until the leather creaked. She kept her breathing shallow so the room would not hear it. The recording kept going, an ugly intimacy spilling out in clean, controlled air. When it ended, silence snapped back into place. The clock on Patricia's desk ticked once, dry as a nail. Patricia's voice came out calm. "That is leverage." Naomi swallowed. She had expected sympathy. She did not want it. Patricia nodded at the phone again. "What else?" Naomi opened her camera roll. Bank statements, transfers to accounts she did not recognize, receipts with cities Julian had never named out loud, a property deed for a downtown condo that did not exist in their conversations. Patricia leaned forward and began to scroll with a single finger. Her nail touched the glass. Tap. A statement enlarged. Tap. A receipt slid into view. Tap. A deed filled the screen. Black letters on white paper, stamped and dated. The sound was small, but in the quiet office it landed like a countdown. Naomi felt her pulse match it, steadying, turning fear into sequence. "Most people come in here with emotion," Patricia said, eyes still on the evidence. "They come to tell me how much it hurt." Her nail tapped again. Tap. "You came with a weapon." Naomi's throat tightened. She forced her voice to stay even. "I need him to think I am still the same." Patricia finally looked up. Her gaze was sharp enough to make Naomi feel seen without being handled. "Then, you do not change your routine. You do not threaten. You do not hint. You gather. You document. You keep your hands clean." Naomi nodded once. A controlled movement. Her stomach felt hollow, but her mind stayed bright, alert, cold. Patricia reached into a drawer and slid a business card across the desk. The cardstock was thick, the edges crisp. Naomi took it. The card cut slightly into her fingertip, a clean sting. She dragged her thumb along the sharp edge again, slower this time, and let the small pain anchor her. Patricia spoke with the same calm. "I want to see the prenuptial agreement. It is in the safe at home," Naomi said. "Then that is your next task." Patricia's voice did not rise, but it carried finality. "If you do not know the combination, do not guess. No forced access. No drama that his attorneys can twist. Bring it to me the moment you can do it cleanly." Naomi stood. Her knees felt steady, as if her body had accepted the new rules. She left the office with the card in her pocket and her phone in her hand. The screen dark now, but still warm with what it carried. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Naomi stepped inside. Stainless steel wrapped around her like a mirror maze. Her reflection fractured into thin versions. One face looked composed. Another looked like a stranger. Another looked like someone wearing skin as a suit. The doors slid shut. The elevator began to descend. A vibration pulsed against her palm. Her phone lit up. "Love you. On my way home." The words glowed gentle, casual, the kind of message that used to make her smile without thinking. Now, it looked like a sticker slapped over a crack. Naomi stared at it. The elevator lights flickered faintly across her face, throwing her fractured reflection into motion. She could hear the soft whir of cables, the tiny click of passing floors. She typed, "See you soon." Her thumbs hovered, waiting for the familiar ending. "Love you too." The cursor blinked, like a dare. Naomi paused long enough for the choice to become real. Then she hit send without adding anything else. The elevator dinged at the lobby level. The doors opened to a rush of warmer air and distant traffic noise. Naomi stepped out and smoothed her expression into something neutral, something Julian would recognize as safe. In her pocket, Patricia's card pressed into her palm. Naomi traced the sharp edge once more. Hidden, deliberate, she walked toward the parking garage with steady steps. Behind her, the elevator doors closed with a soft metallic sigh, and the sound felt like a lock turning. Julian's car rolled into the driveway just as the sky turned the color of watered ink. Headlights swept across the front windows, briefly lighting the framed photos in the hallway like a projector finding its mark. Naomi stood in the kitchen with 2 wine glasses already out, her fingertips cold against the stem. The front door opened. A soft click of the smart lock, the faint rustle of a suit jacket shifting off a shoulder. "Hey, beautiful," Julian said. His voice was warm, practiced. He dropped his bag near the console table and crossed the room like he owned the air. Naomi turned with the right smile in place. "You're early," she said. "Couldn't wait to see you," he said, and kissed her. His mouth tasted like mint and airport coffee. His hands settled at her waist with casual certainty, like her body was furniture he knew by heart. "How was the trip?" she asked. "Exhausting. Productive." He lifted one glass as if checking the color. Patterson's almost locked. He said it like a gift. Like good news erased everything else. Naomi lifted her glass, clinked it lightly, and listened to the thin ring fade into the kitchen's quiet. "Tell me everything," she said. Julian launched into a story with clean edges. Meetings, investors, a late dinner with clients. He punctuated the lies with a laugh that used to feel like a promise. Now it landed wrong, like a key turning in a lock she did not recognize. Naomi nodded at the right moments. She kept her shoulders soft. She kept her breathing even. She let him believe her attention was his. On the counter, her phone lay face down. The weight of it felt like a secret pressed into the marble. Julian leaned in, chin grazing her hair. "You're so easy," he murmured. "You know that." She let out a quiet sound that could pass for affection. "You're lucky," he added. Naomi's fingers tightened around the glass until condensation slicked her knuckles. Dinner smelled like garlic and rosemary. The house hummed with the steady rhythm of appliances. Every normal sound felt amplified, as if the walls had learned to listen. After they ate, Julian loosened his tie and stretched like a man who had completed his obligations. "I'm going to shower," he said. "I feel disgusting." "Go ahead," Naomi said. He kissed her cheek again, absent-minded this time, already halfway into his own world. Upstairs, the bathroom door closed. Water began to run. A steady rush, then the sharper percussion of spray against tile. Naomi stood at the bottom of the stairs for a beat too long, counting the sounds. The shower covered a lot. It would cover the softest mistakes. It would not cover everything. She moved. Her feet were quiet on the carpeted steps. The hallway smelled faintly of linen and Julian's cologne, always a little too crisp. The bedroom door was open. Warm light from the bathroom leaked across the floor. Naomi went straight to the closet. The safe was tucked behind hanging shirts and neatly spaced suit jackets. A dark square in the wall, flush and smug. She stared at it, as if it could stare back. Her hands did not shake. That came later. In private, she reached behind the row of jackets and found the knob. Cool metal. The dial waited. She listened. Water. Steady. A muffled hum of Julian's voice, maybe singing under his breath. A sound so ordinary, it almost made her nauseous. Naomi turned the dial slowly. The clicks were soft, but in the quiet closet they sounded like teeth. Click, click, click. She paused on the final turn. Heart steady, then pulled. The door gave with a small sigh. A hinge whisper. Inside, the safe smelled like paper and metal, the dry scent of locked things. A stack of documents sat beside two passports and a velvet jewelry pouch. Naomi pulled out the folder. Prenuptial agreement. The title was plain, official, unforgiving. She slipped her phone from her pocket and opened the camera. The screen's light painted her hands pale. She took a photo of the safe's interior first, the folder still inside, to show where it lived. Then she lifted the document, laid it flat on the shelf, and photographed each page carefully, holding her breath so the images stayed sharp. Shower. Steady. She flipped a page. The words were dense, polite language wrapping a knife. In the event of dissolution. Separate property. Waiver. Her eyes tracked the lines, and each sentence felt like it had been written with Julian's voice. House. Monthly support. A short stretch of time. Then nothing. Naomi's jaw tightened. She pressed her tongue against the back of her teeth until the pressure steadied her. The paper edges felt sharp against her fingertips, like the document wanted blood. From the bathroom came a change in sound. The shower cut off. Silence for a half-second. Naomi froze. A towel rustled. A drawer slid open. The click of a cologne cap. She slid the document back into the folder, tucked it where she found it, placed the passports exactly as they had been, returned the velvet pouch, and closed the safe with a controlled push. The lock engaged with a muted clunk. She hung the jackets back into their original spacing, smoothing fabric as if she were only tidying. Her phone buzzed once in her hand. The camera still open. She swiped quickly, sent the photos to a draft email addressed to Patricia, and saved it without hitting send. Her thumb hovered over the screen, then lowered. Not yet. No signals too early. Footsteps approached. Bare, damp, casual. Naomi stepped away from the closet and sat at the vanity, picking up her hairbrush as if she had been there the entire time. She drew it through her hair in slow strokes, the bristles whispering. Julian entered with a towel around his waist. His hair was damp. His skin smelled like soap and heat. He watched her in the mirror, smiling. "You okay?" he asked. Naomi met her own eyes in the glass. She made them soft. "Just tired?" she said. He came behind her and rested his hands on her shoulders. His fingers kneaded gently, affectionate without thought. "You work too hard," he said. She almost laughed. The sound sat in her throat like a stone. Julian leaned down, kissed the top of her head. "I missed this." Naomi let the brush lower to her lap. She murmured. He moved toward the bed, already relaxed, already sure. The mattress dipped when he sat, a familiar sink. He glanced toward the closet, then away, bored by anything that did not entertain him. Naomi stood and crossed the room. She set her phone on the nightstand, with the screen face down again. Like an obedient habit, Julian patted the space beside him. "Come here," he said. Naomi walked to the bed and slid in next to him. His arm draped over her, warm and heavy. In the dark, her eyes stayed open. In the closet, behind the obedient line of his jackets, the safe sat closed again, untouched, perfect. And in Naomi's phone, in a quiet draft that would be sent at the right moment, the pages waited like a trap with teeth. Morning arrived without mercy. The house smelled like clean soap and yesterday's rosemary, like nothing had happened, and everything had. Naomi moved through the kitchen with measured quiet, the kind that looked like peace from a distance. The coffee machine gurgled, the faucet hissed. Her hands did not tremble until she was alone. Julian came downstairs dressed too well for a weekday. Hair perfectly controlled, smile already turned on. "Morning," he said, leaning in for a kiss. Naomi gave him her cheek. Not cold, Not warm, just correct. You're up early, she said. Big day, he replied. He poured himself coffee without asking, like the cabinets were extensions of his arms. I might be late. Don't wait up. He said it casually, like a weather update. Naomi watched him stir sugar into a drink he never sweetened. A tiny tell, a hairline crack. He glanced at his phone, thumbs moving fast. He smiled at something that was not in the room. Then he looked up and caught her watching. You okay, babe? The word landed with a softness that felt rehearsed. Fine, Naomi said. Just tired. Julian crossed the space and brushed his fingers along her shoulder, affectionate enough to sell the story. His touch lingered half a beat longer than usual, like he was checking for something beneath her skin. You should treat yourself today, he said. Get your nails done. Lunch with a friend. Whatever you want. A gift wrapped around a leash. Naomi nodded. Sounds nice. He kissed her forehead and grabbed his keys. Love you, he said, already walking away. Naomi smiled without showing teeth. Drive safe, she answered. The front door clicked shut. The smart lock chimed. His car backed out, tires whispering on the driveway like a secret leaving. Naomi did not move until the street was quiet again. Then she exhaled. Upstairs, she shut the bedroom door and sat on the edge of the bed. She turned her phone over, opened the draft she had saved, and looked at the images again. Lines of legal language, signatures, dates, terms designed to starve a woman politely. Her thumb hovered. Not yet, she reminded herself. She opened her notes and typed a single line, slow and deliberate, as if each word had weight. Prenup photographed and secured. Then, another line, do not move. Money, do not react. She stared at that sentence. It looked like advice you would give someone trying to survive a storm. Her screen dimmed. She tapped it awake again. The small persistence of light felt like a pulse. Naomi created a folder on her phone with a name so dull it could disappear in plain sight. Inside it, she placed the photos. She duplicated them. Again and again. Each copy tucked into a different corner of her digital life. Each one wearing a different disguise. When she was done, she held the phone against her chest for a moment, like it was something alive. Downstairs, she opened the drawer where Julian kept spare keys and old batteries. She did not take anything. She simply looked, counted, learned. Then she went into the bathroom and washed her face until the skin looked calm. She applied moisturizer. She applied concealer. She applied lipstick, not for beauty, for armor. She pressed her lips together once, hard enough to leave a clean line, and stared at herself in the mirror until her eyes stopped looking like they belonged to a woman who had been surprised. Her phone buzzed. A message from Julian. Love you. The words glowed on the screen like a taunt. Naomi typed back, see you soon. She paused at the end, thumb hovering where a second sentence could have lived. She sent it anyway. Then she placed her phone in her bag and left the house. The city was bright, full of people moving like they had never been lied to. Naomi drove with both hands on the wheel. At every red light, she kept her face neutral, because even alone in a car, she felt watched by the version of herself that used to believe. She parked a block away from a building with tinted windows and a quiet brass sign that did not advertise itself. Inside, the air smelled like paper and polished wood. Patricia Holmes met her without a smile. Silver hair, suit like armor, eyes that didn't waste time. You have it, Patricia said. Not a question. Naomi nodded and slid her phone across the desk. Patricia did not touch it immediately. She watched Naomi instead, as if measuring how much of her was still intact. Most people come here with tears, Patricia said at last. You came with leverage. Naomi's throat tightened, but she kept her voice even. I learned to be quiet. Patricia picked up the phone and scrolled. Her nails tapped against the screen in a dry, steady rhythm. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound felt like a nail being set in place. This is useful, Patricia said. Not enough by itself to win what you deserve, but enough to keep you from losing everything in the first strike. Naomi swallowed. What do I do now? Patricia leaned back. Do not confront. Do not threaten. Do not let him sense a shift. We build a clean timeline. We secure your access. We protect you legally and financially. Then we choose the moment. Naomi nodded, absorbing every word like it was oxygen. Patricia slid a business card across the desk. A forensic accountant, she said, and a private investigator who understands corporate cases. You do not need revenge. You need proof. Naomi took the card between two fingers. The edge was sharp. She pressed her thumb along it until it stung, just enough to remind her she was awake. Patricia's gaze sharpened. And Naomi, she added, lowering her voice, if he is planning an exit, he is not only leaving you, he is leaving something else behind. People who plan like that tend to take what is not theirs. Naomi felt a chill move through her ribs. Outside, her phone buzzed again. Not Julian this time. An email notification from an address she did not recognize. No subject line. Just one sentence in the preview, blunt as a fingertip pressed to her throat. Stop looking in places you do not belong. The message sat on Naomi's screen like a fingerprint. Stop looking in places you do not belong. No signature. No threat spelled out. Just a sentence that assumed she was already being watched. Naomi didn't reply. Her thumb hovered once, then lowered. She locked her phone, slipped it into her bag, and walked out into the afternoon glare, as if nothing had happened. Her posture stayed relaxed. Her steps stayed unhurried. The only thing that changed was her breathing, shallow and controlled, like she was learning how to live on less air. In the car, she waited until the doors were locked before she opened the email again. She read it 3 times, not for meaning, but for pattern. The wording was clean. No slang, no anger. The kind of line you write when you don't want evidence of emotion. She forwarded it to Patricia with a blank subject. Then she deleted it from her inbox and emptied the trash. Not because she thought it would vanish, but because she refused to let anyone else decide what stayed within reach. Her phone buzzed. A call from an unknown number. Naomi let it ring once. Twice. She answered on the third. Voice steady. Hello. Silence. The faintest sound of breath. Then, a click. The line went dead. A cold flush crawled up the back of her neck. She put the phone down on the passenger seat, like it might stain something. Across the street, a man in a gray jacket leaned against a lamppost, pretending to scroll. He didn't look up. He didn't have to. Naomi could feel the attention anyway. The way you feel heat from a stove before you touch it. She started the car and pulled away smoothly. At the next light, she checked the mirror. A dark sedan moved when she moved, stopped when she stopped. Not close enough to be obvious. Close enough to be sure. Naomi's hands stayed calm on the wheel, but her mind became a narrow hallway. Every thought that wasn't useful got shut behind a door. She drove past her exit, then took a sudden turn into a grocery store parking lot. She circled slowly, like a woman choosing fruit. The sedan followed, then hesitated. A second car, lighter, smaller, slid into the lane behind it. 2. Naomi parked near the far end, close to a cart corral, and sat still. She watched reflections in windows. She watched movement in side mirrors. She watched the way people moved when they thought they were invisible. A text popped up from Patricia. Do not go home. Drive to the address I sent. Park inside. Call me when you arrive. Naomi's chest loosened by a fraction. Not relief. Alignment. Orders were easier than fear. She drove again. Steady. Nothing frantic. Nothing that looked like a chase. She let the sedan see her signals. Let it believe she was predictable. The address led to a parking garage under a plain office building. No signage, no friendly lobby, just concrete and dim light. Naomi took a ticket at the entrance, then drove down to the lower level. She chose a spot between two pillars, where her car disappeared from most angles. She turned off the engine and listened. Footsteps above. A distant engine. Water dripping somewhere. Then another set of footsteps, closer, measured. A man appeared between the pillars as if he had been cut from shadow. Late 40s. Worn leather messenger bag. Eyes that didn't look through people but at them. Directly. Like a camera lens. Naomi, he said quietly. She didn't ask his name. He nodded once, as if he understood the rule of this moment. I'm the person who finds things that don't want to be found. He opened his bag just enough to show a small device and a folder. Not a weapon. Something worse. Information. Someone is checking your digital trail, he said. They're not very subtle, which means they're either confident or new at this. Naomi's mouth went dry. Who? He didn't answer immediately. He watched her, like he was deciding how much truth she could carry without dropping it. Your husband's world isn't just his office, he said at last. It's contractors, third-party vendors, consultants, people who get paid to look the other way until they're paid to look straight at you. Naomi felt the truth of it in her bones. The house, the marriage, the polite smiles, all of it suddenly looked like a stage built over a pit. He slid the folder onto the passenger seat. A list of recent logins tied to a corporate account that shouldn't be touched outside business hours, he said. Someone accessed a secure data room from a residential network. Not yours. Naomi stared at the printout. Dates. Locations. A familiar neighborhood. Too familiar. The man continued, voice low and controlled. There's also a burner number that keeps pinging the same towers as your husband's phone. Different device. Same movements. Same habits. Whoever is behind that email is close enough to him to breathe the same air. Naomi's stomach tightened, but her face stayed still. What do I do? He leaned in slightly, just enough to make his next words feel like a blade laid carefully on a table. You stop being the easiest target, he said. You become the most expensive one. Naomi's phone buzzed again. This time it was Julian. Where are you, babe? Thought we could do dinner. Naomi looked at the text for a beat too long. Her reflection in the windshield looked fractured, split by the garage lights. Her fingers moved. She typed a reply that was gentle enough to be believable. Running errands. Be home soon. She sent it. Then she raised her eyes to the man in the shadows. He watched her screen the way a doctor watches a heartbeat monitor. He's checking for changes, he said. He doesn't know what you know, but he knows something has shifted. Naomi swallowed. Above them, somewhere in the garage, tires rolled slowly over concrete. A car moving without urgency, searching without looking, like it was searching. The man's gaze sharpened. We're not alone, he said. Naomi didn't move. She didn't gasp. She didn't reach for her phone. She simply listened as the sound of the engine drifted closer and closer, until the headlights swept across the pillars like a flashlight in a dark room. Then the car stopped, and a door opened. The headlights froze on the pillars like a spotlight that did not blink. Naomi stayed perfectly still in the driver's seat, hands resting on her lap, face calm enough to pass for boredom. The man beside the pillar did not move either. He simply angled his head, listening, footsteps. Slow, deliberate. The kind that wanted you to notice. A figure stepped into the light and stopped just outside the beam. Not a cop, not a stranger. A building security guard with a radio clipped to his shoulder and a tired face. "Ma'am," he called, polite but firm. "You cannot park down here without a permit." Naomi let out the smallest breath through her nose. Not relief. More like confirmation that the universe still followed rules sometimes. She lowered the window halfway. "Sorry," she said. The guard glanced past her into the shadows, as if searching for someone else, then back to Naomi. His eyes lingered a beat too long on her bag, on her phone, on her face. Naomi smiled, soft, innocent, a smile that made people underestimate the cost of pushing further. "I'll move right now," she added. The guard nodded, but his gaze stayed fixed, not on her, but on the man in the shadows. Then he turned and walked away without another word. When the guard's footsteps faded, the man beside the pillar finally spoke. "That was not about parking," he said. Naomi's voice was quiet. "Who sent him?" "Someone who wants you to feel watched," he said, "and wants you to keep driving in circles until you make a mistake." Naomi stared at the lane where the guard had vanished. Her pulse stayed controlled, but her mind sharpened into a clean blade. "Then we stop circling," she said. The man's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Good," he replied. "Then you do what you were going to do anyway. Only cleaner. Only colder." Naomi pulled out of the spot and drove up to daylight, as if she had never been afraid of anything in her life. That evening, the city wore its wealth like perfume. The event hall rose above the street with glass walls and warm lighting, all gold and velvet and soft laughter. Inside, chandeliers made the air look expensive. Cameras flashed at the entrance. People greeted each other with cheeks and compliments and curated stories about success. Naomi stepped through the doors in a black dress that fit like restraint. Her hair was pinned back. Her lipstick was not romantic. It was armor. Julian stood near the bar, flawless in a tailored suit, performing charm like a religion. He laughed too loudly at a joke. He touched shoulders with practiced ease. He was a man who believed every room belonged to him. When he saw Naomi, his face lit up in a way that would have fooled anyone who did not know how to read microseconds. "There you are," he said, pulling her into a hug. His voice was warm. His hand was possessive at the small of her back. "You look incredible." Naomi let her arms fold around him, light as silk. Her eyes stayed open over his shoulder, watching the room the way a hunter watches tall grass. "Thank you," she said. Julian leaned close, lips brushing her ear. "You okay? You seemed distracted earlier." Naomi smiled against his cheek, a soft curve he could interpret as devotion. "Just a long day," she murmured. Julian kissed her temple like a man signing his name on property, then turned her toward a cluster of executives. "Come on, I want you to meet someone." Naomi moved with him through the crowd, her heels clicking a calm rhythm on marble. She let him talk, let him shine, let him believe the night was his. A woman in a silver gown greeted Julian with a bright, practiced smile. A man with cufflinks like tiny mirrors shook his hand. Another leaned in, whispering about numbers and timelines and a deal that would change everything. Julian's eyes gleamed. Naomi stood just beside him, the perfect accessory, listening to words that sounded like business and felt like betrayal. Then, the announcer called everyone toward the stage for a short toast. Music swelled. Glasses rose. Laughter bounced off the walls. Julian guided Naomi toward the front, as if leading her into a photograph. The speaker on stage praised ambition, praised vision, praised the future. Naomi watched Julian's profile in the shifting light. His jaw was relaxed. His smile was automatic. He looked untouchable. That was the moment she stepped half a pace away. Julian glanced at her, subtle irritation flickering. Naomi reached into her clutch and pulled out a slim envelope, cream-colored, unmarked. No logo, no decoration, just paper, just weight. She turned toward him and held it out. Julian's brows lifted. "What's this?" Naomi's voice was low, calm enough to sound intimate. "For you?" she said. The band hit a bright note, and then, as if someone had cut a wire, the sound disappeared. Not literally, but in the way a room goes silent when people sense blood in the water. Conversations thinned. A laugh died mid-breath. The clink of glasses faded into distance. All that remained was the dry, tiny rasp of paper when Julian slid a finger under the flap. Naomi watched him open it. She watched the confidence drain from his face in stages. First, confusion, then a flicker of anger, then something colder. Something that did not belong on a man who believed he controlled outcomes. Julian's eyes darted over the page again, faster this time. Like speed could erase meaning. His smile tried to return. It failed. He looked up at Naomi, and the room behind him blurred into a soft, glittering fog. "What the hell is this?" he whispered through his teeth. Naomi tilted her head, expression unreadable. "It is the beginning of consequences," she said. Julian's fingers tightened on the paper until the edges bent. "You are doing this here." Naomi's gaze slid past him to the people watching from a careful distance, pretending not to watch. "Yes," she replied. Julian's voice lowered, sharp. "You have no idea what you're playing with." Naomi held his stare without blinking. "I do," she said softly. "And you are standing in it." Julian's throat bobbed. His eyes flicked to the exits, to the crowd, to the stage, calculating angles like a man trying to find a door in a burning room. Behind them, the music returned in hesitant fragments, uncertain whether it was allowed to exist. Naomi stepped closer, close enough for him to smell her perfume and mistake it for comfort. Then she spoke only for him. "Smile, Julian," she whispered. "You are being watched." His face twitched, and for the first time that night, Julian obeyed someone else. Julian's smile stayed on his face, the way a bandage stays on a wound that will not stop bleeding. Up close, Naomi could see the tiny betrayals in him, the pulse at his throat, the rigid set of his jaw, the way his fingers kept folding the paper, unfolding it, as if creasing it hard enough could make it become something else. He leaned in without turning his head, teeth still showing for the room. "What did you do?" he whispered. Naomi held her glass by the stem, delicate and controlled. "I gave you something you forgot you owed," she murmured. "Time." Julian's hand found her elbow. Not a squeeze, a claim. He guided her away from the crowd toward a corridor lined with framed photographs of men shaking hands. Deals immortalized as art. The music softened behind them. The laughter returned in cautious bursts. People were already deciding which version of the story they would repeat tomorrow. Julian stopped in the shadow of a tall plant and turned to her, voice low and sharp. "You picked the worst possible place for a stunt." Naomi looked at his hand on her arm, then back to his face. "If it were a stunt, you would not be afraid," she said. His eyes flashed. "You think you have leverage because you can embarrass me." Naomi tilted her head slightly. "Embarrassment is what people fear when they still have a future." Julian's grip tightened by a fraction, then loosened. He caught himself. He was too practiced to leave bruises in public. His expression softened into something almost tender, the mask he used when he needed cooperation. "Naomi, listen. We can handle this privately. Whatever you think you saw, whatever you think you heard, we can talk like adults." The word adults tasted like poison in his mouth. Naomi could hear it. She lifted her gaze past him. Across the corridor, one of Julian's colleagues had paused mid-step, pretending to check a message while watching them in the reflection of the glass. Naomi lowered her voice. "You do not want private, Julian. You want quiet." Julian's nostrils flared. Then he forced a laugh, quiet and false. "You always did love drama," he said, as if teasing her, as if he was not standing on a trapdoor. Naomi's smile was small. "No," she replied. "I love clarity." Julian's phone vibrated. Once, his eyes flicked down despite himself. A message lit the screen, and Naomi saw the single word that changed the angle of his shoulders. Compliance. Julian stared at it like it was a threat with teeth. Then his phone buzzed again. Another message. Shorter. Colder. "Come. Now." Julian swallowed. He looked up at Naomi, as if she had somehow sent the message with her eyes. "What is this?" he demanded. Naomi shrugged lightly. Maybe someone finally noticed the smoke. Julian's lips parted, ready to spit something cruel. Then a voice cut through the corridor, polite and unyielding. "Mr. Vale." They both turned. A man in a dark suit stood at the end of the hallway, not part of the party's glittering ecosystem. No drink in hand, no laughter in his eyes, just purpose. Beside him was the head of venue security, face neutral, stance wide, like a door that had decided it would not open. "Mr. Vale," the man repeated. "There is a meeting upstairs. You are expected." Julian blinked, then recovered fast. "I am in the middle of something." The man did not move. "Yes," he said. "That is why it cannot wait." Julian's gaze snapped to Naomi, fury pulsing just beneath his skin. "Did you call someone?" Naomi's voice stayed calm. "No," she said. "I simply stopped protecting you from being seen." Julian straightened, smoothing his jacket, building his armor back piece by piece. "Fine," he said to the man. "Give me a second." The man's eyes flicked to Naomi, then back to Julian. "Now, Mr. Vale." Julian's jaw worked. He looked like he was about to argue, then chose survival over pride. He leaned close to Naomi one last time, voice low enough to be intimate, vicious enough to be a threat. "You think you are winning," he hissed. "You do not understand who you are poking." Naomi met his stare with a stillness that made him hesitate. "I do," she said softly. "That is why I did not poke. I documented." Julian's eyes hardened. He turned and walked with the man and the security head toward the elevator at the end of the corridor. Naomi did not follow. She stepped back into the edge of the ballroom where light was warmer and lies were easier to breathe. From there, she watched Julian's figure reflected in mirrored panels, fractured into multiple versions of himself as he approached the elevator. Powerful, charming, cornered. The elevator doors opened with a clean, indifferent sound. Julian stepped inside. Just before the doors closed, he looked back once, searching for her face as if he could still pull her into silence. Naomi did not flinch. The doors shut. The music swelled again, trying to pretend nothing had happened. Naomi lifted her glass, took a slow sip, and tasted something new beneath the champagne. Air. Her phone vibrated in her clutch. A single message appeared. "They are requesting his devices." Naomi's thumb hovered over the screen. She did not reply. Instead, she turned toward the exit, moving through the crowd like a woman who belonged to herself. Behind her, somewhere above the chandeliers and applause, the building held its breath. And Julian, for the first time in years, had no door he could lock from the inside. The first thing Naomi noticed in the new place was the absence of Julian's footsteps. No leather soles pacing the hallway at midnight. No drawer slammed shut to end an argument. No soft, rehearsed sigh that meant she was expected to apologize for something she never did. The apartment was small, clean, and quiet in a way that did not feel like punishment. It felt like oxygen. Morning light spilled across the kitchen counter. She set a mug down and watched her own hand for a second, as if she were still learning what it meant to move without permission. Her phone sat face down beside her keys. Her keys were only her keys now. On the table, an envelope waited. Not dramatic, not heavy, just paper that carried the kind of consequences Julian had always believed belonged only to other people. She opened it slowly. A short letter, a stamped notice, a date for a hearing, another for mediation, a line that read, in careful language, that Julian Vale was no longer acting in his executive capacity pending investigation. Naomi did not smile. She did not cry. She let the words settle into her chest and become something solid and quiet. Her phone buzzed once. Patricia. Naomi answered on the second ring. He tried to negotiate through his counsel, Patricia said. They asked if you would be willing to sign an agreement that includes a non-disclosure clause. Naomi stared at the steam rising from her mug. He still thinks silence is something he can buy, she said. Patricia made a sound that might have been a laugh if it had ever learned warmth. He offered more money than he can afford to move quickly, Patricia said. It is not generosity. It is panic. Naomi looked out the window at the street below. People hurried past with groceries, backpacks, coffee cups. Ordinary lives, ordinary secrets, ordinary endings that did not have to explode to be final. What do you recommend? Naomi asked. Patricia paused, and in that pause, Naomi heard what she had heard from her since the beginning. Strategy instead of sympathy. We take what is fair, Patricia said. We take what is provable. We leave him no room to rewrite the story later. Naomi closed her eyes briefly. And the investigation? She asked. Patricia's voice sharpened. The board is cooperating. Regulators are asking questions. The people he used to intimidate have found their voices. It turns out a man can only stand on other people's throats for so long before someone decides to breathe. Naomi exhaled. When she ended the call, the silence returned, but it felt different now. It was not the silence of hiding. It was the silence of choosing. She walked to the bedroom and opened a drawer. Inside was a single notebook, plain and worn, the corners softened by use. She flipped to the last page. There were no dramatic headlines, just lines, dates, names, details, the small anatomy of a collapse. She traced one line with her fingertip, then closed the notebook and pushed the drawer shut. Her laptop sat on the nightstand. She opened it, typed in her password, and waited. A folder appeared on the screen. Inside it was one file. For a moment she listened, not with her ears, but with memory, the faintest echo of laughter that had once turned her stomach into ice, the thin, confident cruelty of a man who believed he was untouchable. Naomi rested her hand on the trackpad. There was a kind of power in keeping the weapon, even after the war was over, a private altar to what she survived, a guarantee that she would never doubt herself again. And there was another kind of power in letting it go. She copied the file to an encrypted archive labeled with nothing meaningful, then placed that archive into a secure vault she could access if she ever needed it. Not for revenge, for defense, for truth. If truth ever had to be spoken again. Then she deleted the working copy. The screen asked if she was sure. Naomi did not hesitate. Yes. When the file disappeared, the room did not get louder. The air did not change. The world did not applaud. But something in her shoulders released. Like a muscle, finally realizing it was allowed to unclench. Her phone buzzed again. A message from an unfamiliar number, a woman's name, a company Naomi recognized, a single sentence beneath it. I heard you were the one who made him stop. Can we talk? Naomi stared at the screen for a long beat. In the reflection, she saw her own face. Not the face she wore to survive. Not the face Julian trained her to keep. Her real face. Calm and awake. She set the phone down without replying immediately. She stood, walked to the window, and opened it. City noise drifted in. Distant traffic. A dog barking. Someone laughing for reasons that were not cruel. Naomi breathed it in. Then she picked up the phone again, typed a short reply, and pressed send. Yes, she wrote. Tell me what he did.